Shabbat Shalom and good day all. This is Tehillim29 back again, and yes, I'm doing a live stream review of Cobra Kai Season 4, and of course I'll be using my review from the Rainbow Press and Comics website, which is also shared not only in the description but also in the comment section. A big thanks to all who make it to this live stream, whether you actually turn up during the live stream or even after the live stream. I appreciate you in making it to the review, and I hope you enjoy what I have to share. So, moving into first things first, I'm going to go ahead anyway and make a start with diving right into the episodes and what I actually shared about the episodes in the review. And it also gives me a little bit of time to actually expand a little bit more in what I was trying to say in the text, as well as for you to understand what was going through my mind at the time as I was watching. So as you can see here, we've got the posters for it, which I must admit, it is a really nice poster. Of course, the link for today's live stream. And of course, moving into the key part of the review. Round 4, Tournament for the Soul of the Valley. Well, that's the impression that we were given at the end of Season 3. That this is meant to be a battle for the soul, if not the heart of the valley, of the All-Valley Tournament. And it links, of course, to the agreements, or an agreement that is actually seen in the series. It didn't get to take full fruition in Season 3, but it does actually start to take fruition in Season 4. So starting off, the first 2 episodes of this season, I must admit, yes, I was quite amazed of how this story is continuing. It practically worked in a way to which it picked up from the previous season moving into this season. And with Daniel and Johnny still learning to work each other, whilst even Anthony LaRusso gets caught up in the wrong crowd as the new kid starts at the All-Valley School, or the elementary school. And we learn we will actually come across the new kid, who is also Kenny. First thing I'd like to give credit to, especially in episode 2, is how they tackled online bullying to full-on bullying in this day and age, whilst keeping to sharing of what lies beneath in the story. From Kreese visiting Silver. So in a way, we have Kreese returning to see what Terry Silver's lifestyle is like, and basically what he's doing today. Then moving into a slow crawl to the tournament, how Sam and other characters are dealing with their current situations at the school, and of course the introduction of Kenny, to which in the video game he was playing. Now this is something that I noticed, and I'm not too sure if I'm the only one who noticed this, and I'd like to know if I'm not the only one who noticed this. And being someone who's also been in the martial arts myself, you also get to know some of the names of like some famous martial artists. Now, one thing is how Kenny's username, it actually reminded me of the name of one of these famous martial artists, sort of like moving into the 80s, 90s, and of course one that has also worked alongside Jackie Chan. And which his username online on the game he plays is Kenny the Jet 99. Now, if you change the K here to a B, now this is where it reminds me of the martial artist known as Benny the Jet Urquidez. Even though I didn't get to cover his full name here, I'm not too worried about it, but that is the title he was known as. He was known as Benny the Jet. And I enjoyed that little Easter egg in that episode, but also possibly learning that not only Kenny, but also Anthony, both like some of the same characters, like just in this interaction before the next bully scene takes out. And one of the things that I sort of disliked about the bully scene, even though you could see that in the Anthony LaRusso household, that you actually had Anthony LaRusso getting peer pressure from his buddies to do, or basically to be a jerk to Kenny. And of course it leads up to the setup and the place that he goes to. And this is where a little bit later on in the episode he also gets called La Pusso. So whilst they also go to the event to which they want to sort of like bully Kenny and that, yes, it does sort of reflect something that happened in like the previous Karate Kid series, which was very interesting. But of course, with this series, it does take a turn. One thing else I also noticed in that scene around episode 2 is that you could see that Kenny did pick up that it was actually his friends goading him to take the punch at him, but he didn't, because he's seen as sort of like, oh, you're the son of this big guy who was famous in this time, blah, 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 blah. And they're expecting him to sort of like know martial arts when he knows none at all. He does eventually get away, and I did actually find it quite interesting. Moving into episodes 3 and 4, it takes the Miyagi and Eagle Fang dojos to exploring new methods between them as both overcome their new fears. Kenny starts some training from Robbie before becoming a student under Kreese, who has just brought back Terry Silver to the dojo to teach as a sensei. So with the setup of Cobra Kai literally having 2 senseis now instead of 1, hey, good to see you, Ed Brewer. I hope you're doing well. I'm just working on doing my review right now, and you're welcome to join in. And I hope all things are okay on your end. As things occur behind the scenes with Johnny, who is putting other things first but feeling left out in other things in relation to Miguel. Whilst Miguel is also getting some life skill training, which he was getting some life skill training. I might be for thinking that Tori is She's an interesting character, I must admit. And it's interesting to see how this story has developed over the last couple of seasons to this season. What is it? As things occur behind the scenes with Johnny, who is putting other things first. So, of course, there's the rush of getting ready for the tournament and how they want to do things their own way before things start to sort of like slowly grab together towards the end. Whilst Miguel is also getting some life training, which I really enjoyed seeing Miguel learning from Daniel how to actually take care or even fix a vehicle. And especially his mother's vehicle. And I thought that was really good. Yeah, okay, he did get some driver training from Daniel as well, but that's neither here or there. It was nice to see that he actually learned that skill. And for a character like him, it could actually pay off a little bit later in maybe upcoming seasons. And that is a possibility too, because of him actually learning this from Daniel, who is now seen as a car dealer. It might lead him to maybe getting into the business of cars. If not cars, he might go motorbikes and learn how to fix them up. So that would be very interesting. Hey, if it isn't Tommy from the Guinea Pig Collective, I hope those guinea pigs are doing okay. And moving into the next part, before the end of the episode ends, Cobra Kai has gotten a little washed up over an incident that happened at a drive-in cinema, which was really nice to see. And in this drive-in cinema, they also had Bloodsport showing. And it was really quite interesting, and it was really nice to see that callback to that time period to which some of these films were actually quite popular or moving into quite famous. But it's not the only thing that also was brought in. Which leads Kreese and Silver to leave the episode on a cliffhanger as they finally go to the Miyagi dojo, where both Daniel and Johnny are, and this begins to set things up in relation to their deal and what the deal is for the Valley. And of course, moving into episodes 5 and 6, it does take a different turn in the series. So the deal or talk's been done, and it takes a different turn in the series where division has eventually grown between Daniel and Johnny, because number one, Terry Silver's back in the Valley. We get to see both Daniel and Johnny handle the situation by going their own separate ways, with both hoping to win in the tournament when it's reached. So when they finally reach tournament day, they're just going to have to try to go for the win by themselves. And in essence, it does end up achieving in something that what Terry Silver and Kreese wanted to do. So setting a division between them, and they get the division, of course. In episode 6, we get to see the council currently responsible for setting up the karate tournament, as well as the rules, the guidelines for the tournament, which definitely lays down a big surprise of divisions for the tournament to be won. And I really liked what they did here. And it also paid off later on in the tournament. They did a good job of it, I thought. Most had the consensus it would be bad. Yes, in relation to this series, I definitely agree. But in my last season review, I sort of set up a prediction that it was actually going to be won by a female character. But I'll be able to discuss that later when I start to reach those episodes. And I haven't set any thoughts or theories as to what will be happening later on yet, but I do intend on using this live stream so I can actually talk about the thoughts and theories of some of the upcoming things that might actually show up in the series. Getting back, in episode... okay, I covered that bit. With all the dojos now pushing for new recruits, which also includes for new recruits with them getting female competitors, and I thought that was really good. Daniel finds out a little bit more about his own wife's past, of her wanting to try to get things right with Tori, and I liked what happened there, and I liked what happened in that situation. And I definitely feel it will probably have a little bit more payback in the future, because if it's one thing we haven't learned so far, it is what is Daniel's wife's background. We get little snippets of like throughout the series, but not all of the series. Yes, she's sort of like living the high life with Daniel LaRussa plus his family, which is also her family, and it's really good to see something. And I'm wondering how this might also affect the story in the future. Will Terry Silver maybe go out of his way to dig that past up to try to use it as a weapon against her? There is that possibility. But then again, there isn't that possibility, depending on how the creators go with the series. Because with some stories, they bring in something that might be important, but it might not be brought back again later on, such as sort of like what happened between Johnny and his son. Another thing as well... Oh, I wrote that wrong. And Sam also in the episode catches up with Aisha. I'm going to have to go back and correct that, my error. To which was fantastic to see. I enjoyed seeing Aisha return to the series, and I really hope that there is a possibility that they might bring her back again in the upcoming series. It doesn't mean it will happen, but it was really nice to see Sam's best friend, to which she got to see in season 1, season 2. Of course, she shows up again in season 4. And I thought that she was a really nice character that was brought into the series. Yes, even though she had to leave the series. And in the process, she gave Sam some advice to help fix things between her and Tori. And you can see that after she caught up with Tori again after catching up with Aisha, is that she totally ignored her friend's advice and learned nothing from it. Because, of course, Aisha now has her new bestie at a new school, who she sort of like called out and became a good friend. But even though you might not get to see the actual pictures of them, I thought it was actually really good advice to which they brought in for Sam so that she could learn to overcome that situation. Jumping into episode 7 now, with these last couple of things, or these last couple of episodes, I decided to do them separately because it was actually drawing closer to the end of the series. And of course, in episode 7, starts to open some more things around some of the events that have been happening in the Ore Valley, from Anthony LaRusso bullying the new student, Kenny Payne, training for an upcoming tournament, to even Kreese still having a little competition, or Kreese and Silver having a little competition between each other in their own dojo. And that I found was interesting too. Now, as things get closer to the tournament, I really thought that if they were going to insert or show something in regards to, for example, Kreese starting to do some things behind the scenes, say in regards to the tournament itself, and also bribing or actually communicating with one of the members that are connected to the tournament for the bribe, I really think that around this area would have been the best time, sort of like after they've received the rules, they've received the guidelines. This would have been the best time to actually put it in this season. But seeing it wasn't there, and we see evidence of it later on, to which I'll address once we get there. Johnny finds time to spend with Miguel so he doesn't feel awkward about his relationship with him and his mother. And Sam LaRusso also finding time to learn some Eagle Fang. Now, that was something I quite enjoyed too, when it started to get into that. And this is, of course, taking place before the big bad event at the tournament. So, moving into episode 8, it takes place starting off with the Cobra dojo, where Kreese is teaching the students how to get under their enemy's skins by the power of words. Now, this I thought was really good because it showed them how to think not only for themselves, but also how to put their enemy either, number one, in a defensive position, but also an offensive position that might even help them lose balance. And of course, that's the whole idea of the Cobra Kai Dojo, to help your opponent lose balance. Of course, as the school the prom is the next place that gets revisited, Johnny's old dojos, the one created in season 1, his original one, where so we get to see both dojos seen in this season, the first one plus the original, and also seen in Karate Kid 3, to which Terry Silver then directs Johnny to go to like the original dojo, or the first dojo. Hey, good to see you, Ash on Comics. I hope you're doing well. Glad you're able to make it. As Terry and Kreese are at the old dojo, Silver has devised a plan to win the tournament by also scouting out new locations. Now, this is something that you learn in the story, and I think that's really good. Also setting up Kreese to expose, plus he's also setting up Kreese to expose his weaknesses. And you get to see that when he talks about that in the training at dojo. After the prom, the students go to a place where Stingray is living for an after party. Sam and Miguel do actually head home after the party, like after a fight sort of takes out. Tori and Miguel left behind. Miguel goes back to check on Johnny. He sees that he's been drinking, so he helps him get some rest by taking him to bed. And of course, that's where you hear him say, I love you, Robbie. And I thought that was really nice because you can see he's still thinking about his own son in the series. Plus, not only that, you do get to see in this episode Anthony LaRusso finally coming to terms what he has done and starting to make in his own change in behavior. And you get to see it directly through the episode, like a little bit before the prom stuff, that he actually does something without being told. I really liked this season. It might be the best season since the first. And I have actually heard a lot of that being said. Some people have said that they enjoy the third season over the fourth. For myself, I haven't set any season as a favorite yet, but all I'm doing is just going in to enjoy the story. I don't want to look at anything political that might want to get involved with the story. Even though I've heard that there might have been something a little bit at the beginning. Thing is, I ended up watching through the series this week, and I've got no problem, even if Anthony LaRusso does happen to know any Asian buddies or friends. Hey, it's also a part of the writer's story. And don't forget, even Daniel himself knew some Asian friends, even if those Asian friends were in Japan. Even though it might have shown in this high school or whatever. Now, when you look at the very second episode, to which that actually happens, no, you do not see Anthony LaRusso with an Asian friend. Maybe there's one a little bit later when it leads to the bully fight in the school. That's sort of about the only time, but it's sort of like the only one friend that he might actually know that is Asian. And for what it was okay. It was good. Moving to the next thing. And it was really nice to see what happened there. And also a little bit of foreshadowing too with what is starting to begin with Anthony. Was it this episode, or it might have been one of the earlier episodes? But I'll address it when I get to it. Now, this is what we were all waiting for. And episode 9, which was finally tournament time, is here in the All Valley. And of course, the way how things have sort of changed compared to the tournament that was in, say, the original the Karate Kid movies. In this one, we actually got a bit of a big entrance of like all of the dojos that were participating. We didn't get to see the entrance of, say, some of the new dojos that were there. But it would still be nice to it still would have been nice for them to show their entry, because it would also show the audience as well. Okay, we know that Eagle Fang, Miyagi-Do, Cobra Kai are not only against each other in this tournament, but they're also against these other said dojos in the tournament, to which they too are wanting to come in for the big win. And of course, there was sort of like an All Valley type karate there, plus a couple of others. I wasn't able to grab all the names, but of course we know with the series it is centering around Eagle Fang, Miyagi-Do, and Cobra Kai, all wanting to get enough points in the tournament to send one or multiple dojos out of the valley, and basically one to rule the valley. The first part of the tournament tackles skills of the dojos from kata, including weapons kata, to board and brick breaking. And I thought that was really good. It definitely brought on a lot of things that sort of like connected to the early time period, like in the 80s, to which, for example, in Bloodsport, you saw the brick breaking. Great idea. Of course, the board breaking and like other things. It was also nice to see the kata, as kata takes a big place, especially in the world of karate, as it helps you to focus on a lot of things. But even though you might not be fighting an actual opponent, it does prepare you to basically be muscle ready for when you do need to protect yourself against an opponent. So it eventually moves up into the qualifying matches as to which dojo will make it into the final rounds. We finally reach the quarter and semi-finals, which race through the episode as things get closer and closer. And Miguel's injury, which actually happens against Eli, he decides to, as you learn in the next episode, he decides to throw the fight and let Eli win, or Eli, who is also known as Hawk, win. It was really nice because he personally chose to make that decision because of the injury, so he didn't want to go back in, cause any more strain. And of course, with an injury like you saw in his at the end of season 2, for it to come back again in season 4, like something he wasn't quite ready for yet, and that is to like return as a champion. Jumping into episode 10. Episode 10 starts off with Stingray waking up in hospital after being beaten by Terry Silver. The tournament continues at the All Valley with Robbie, who is now versing Dimitri in the ring as things slowly draw to a close. As one match is over, Anthony finds the time to make amends with Kenny in the locker room, to which things go sour and Robbie comes in, seeing the scuffle. Now, one good thing that you also learn about Robbie's character is that I think what's happening here is that he's actually tried to play a part. You prefer Hawk over Eli. Well, that's all cool. That's when he was actually Cobra Kai plus Eagle Fang, but that's cool. That's cool. Let's move into, and because of him seeing sort of like the evidence of him, like of the things that he's learnt, this might actually come back in regards to Robbie. He could actually be the character who will sort of like, after what might happen in season 5, we don't know we've got a rough idea what's going to be happening in season 5 of some of the leaked images. Plus, that was also shared at the end of episode 10. As the girls' match is going on in the background, Johnny Lawrence ends up catching up once again with John Kreese after seeing Miguel. Now, that was really interesting because I liked what was done here, because he's starting to slowly wake up and learn the lesson of what Mr. Miyagi was actually teaching him. Not Johnny Lawrence, but Kreese himself. So, and you start to see that payoff when it gets to the girls' final tournament. And I'll now get to that. The final tournament bouts start to begin with the dojos ready to put their best foot forward in the winning of the championship trophy. The last tournament between the boys is Eli and Robbie, whilst the last between the girls is between Sam and Tori. Now, I thought the Eli and Robbie fight was really good, and I enjoyed what happened there because you do have Robbie sort of like starting to make his own decisions in regards to how he wants the match to end because of what he's been under and also what he's been trying to do. You also get to see I get that they wanted Eli to have a redemption arc, but he doesn't have to ditch the Hawk persona to do so. Well, in this, they did choose to do so, and who knows how it might affect in the upcoming seasons. And understood and fair point there, Ash. And of course, with the boys' match over, it finally moves into Tori and Sam's. And this actually becomes sort of like the small reconciliation point once again for Daniel and Johnny, as it leads to the last fight, or this fight, or this match being between the girls. Now, one of the things that I sort of suspected in the theory for this season is that they would actually hinge the story to be won by a female character. So in a way, sort of following, for example, the Karate Kid 1, the Karate Kid 2, Karate Kid 3, Karate Kid 4, the fourth Karate Kid being the next Karate Kid, which had Julie Pierce, that they would actually lead it to be won by a female. And sure enough, that is how this story was finished. That they did allow a female to win the tournament. I'm glad Robbie finally had a redemption arc. Season 5 season 5 seasons of him with a chip on his shoulder would have been too much. And that I totally agree. And I liked what happened there. With him actually finally coming to peace with his father and coming to peace with his old man. And that really paid off in this season. But you can definitely see that there is actually a bit of foreshadowing as to who will be taking some of the next characters' places. Okay, moving into the afterthoughts. The fourth season had quite a lot to offer, and where it lacked in some things at the beginning, such as where it lacked with some of the things at the beginning, it helped make it up towards the end. But there were some things in the season that also made me think of how they are starting to foreshadow for the next season, if not the next 2 seasons. I also have brought up in text, what was it, in the Extreme Movie Show, that I'd like to see him like go to season 6 and maybe go for a 2-year break, as I think that would be really good, not only for the actors, but also for the writers. And that would really be nice to be seen. Another thing, too, is that I wanted to bring up my thoughts and theories in relation, like, So sort of like taking place after sharing this review. Many of the characters were good, along with the feeling of the introduction of some early characters starting to take the platform, as well as Silver learning to expose even his own opponent's weaknesses. That definitely grabbed him. So even Terry Silver himself learning from his own. Yeah, it's just my own personal thoughts. I would like to see Cobra Kai take a 2-year break, maybe after season 6. I think it would be good not only for the actors, but also for them to develop a little bit more with the story and the characters. Plus, it would also give the actors themselves, if they want to, say, explore maybe doing a movie role, not necessarily a like another seasonal role, but they still remain contract to Cobra Kai, but with them giving time to do other things outside of Cobra Kai. At least they're not being kept to staying in one series or one set of things to which they're known for. So in other words, learning to improve in their trade a little bit more. So who's not to say that the character of Miguel might show up in, say, a gangster film? That's not saying it will happen. It's just maybe he might want to explore different areas of acting, apart from the acting that he already knows. And I must admit, Miguel's acting has been great in the series, along with many of the other cast of characters. But it would actually be nice to see that. And I don't think it would hurt the franchise, because if you look at how things have gone in relation to products such as Star Wars, whatever else, I'm not even sure they would go beyond season 5 or season, much less doing a 2-year break after 6 seasons. The kids will be graduating. Well, that's the thing. You do want them to break out into sort of like new types of film or cinema. Or not just cinema, but also if they might want to jump onto a new series that might grab their interest, they could do that too, which might be a little bit more age appropriate for them. But who isn't to say that they might want to bring them back for a future season, which is another possibility too. It doesn't mean they will do it. It doesn't mean they won't do it. But these are just thoughts. Of some of the things, beginning with Kenny and Anthony, the bully scene, at the beginning didn't almost work, especially when mainly his peers were goading him on. Whatever else, as I mentioned, I'll be covering in regards to the review of this series, in regards to thoughts and theories, are actually going to be covered in this live stream. Jumping into the rating. For the main characters, I gave a 7.5, as I quite enjoyed the characters. For the supporting characters and their role, the filming, I actually liked the filming. It came off very well done, like it flowed. And for the story, I also gave it a 7.5. Of course, a huge thanks to the creators of both The Karate Kid and Cobra Kai. Now, in regards to thoughts and theories, we do have the issue of the contract. Now, or not necessarily the contract, but the deal that was made in the season. And it made me come to look for something online in the elements in regarding the contract. So is there a possibility that this contract or this deal that was made between Johnny Daniel to become null and void. And this is a website that I came across, and I'll definitely share it in the text or in the comment section so you can check out. And of course, it basically sets down the rules like for a legal contract to work. Now, one thing about this contract or this deal is that, yes, even though we have parties involved, if it's one thing that wasn't done with this contract, even though it was done verbally, it would have given more grounds, or it would have given more weight if this contract was actually done in a legal format, even if it meant like going to like a civil court or something like that to set it up in the valley. But seeing that it didn't include that, it actually leaves this contract to falling into somewhat illegal grounds. And of course, we know that Terry Silver himself isn't the best of men to deal with, especially when you go into his such as what does the contract prefer? People who are underage, intoxicated, the legal capacity can't be held liable. So, number one, it immediately sets things up that, okay, the people who aren't liable are sort of like people who would basically be considered minors. And of course, we know that the people who are making this agreement actually are using something that will, in a way, involve minors, being, in essence, the dojo and the students. But they can also exit the contract at any time without breaching it. Silver was an A-class jerk. It was wondrous. Yes, it was, Tommy. He was a full-on jerk, especially with what he did with Kreese. And yes, you're going to get spoilers here, and I don't really give a flying fist about it. I would use the F-U-C-K word, but I think you get the fair idea. But yes, with what Kreese did at the end, I really think or what happened with Kreese, you definitely saw him wake up and see the importance of what it was like for his students to win honorably against an opponent. And that played out well with Tori. But of course, with Silver, I still think it would have worked better, maybe around the time of the guidelines coming out, that you saw him beforehand, like starting to set things up. Silver definitely has a screw loose for a lot. I thought he was going to be redeemed. At the beginning, he did almost look like he was going to be redeemed with his first encounter, like after a long time, with meeting or catching up with Kreese again. And like the fact that he chose to, like when you do actually see him at the beginning, and the words that he says at the beginning of a series it was like really good, and it lets you know, okay, what was he doing, or what else was he doing in that time that caused him to be so screwed up in the head? And of course, he shares that, yeah, he was also on drugs at the time, and of course, by whatever else we know, by the films plus what was also shared in his background history that was shown in this season, to how he becomes sort of like a part of Cobra Kai, of course, to their tattoo that is shared between him and Kreese. That was really good too. Moving into other things of the contract, sort of like the offers or the terms of the service of the contract. Of course, it shares a little bit things. If the contract is accepted and signed. Now, one thing that we never really got to see was actually a legal contract signed between Miyagi-Do, Eagle Fang, and Cobra Kai in regards to these terms that were set up by both Silver and Kreese. Yeah, they did a good job developing his character so you could understand his motives. And yes, that I totally agree. Especially when it came towards the end, when we finally had Silver and Stingray, and after Stingray had sort of like been sent out of the dojo by Kreese, you can definitely see that when Stingray comes back, he's going to be sort of like one of the underlings. Hey, good to see you, Michael Brent. I hope you're doing well. Like, he'll become like one of the underlings that was seen in like Karate Kid 3. So he's practically going to become Terry Silver's punching bag. That you can definitely see because of how Terry Silver treated him. And the thing is, what will it take for him to break and leave Terry Silver? That I don't know right now. What the writers have in mind right now, I got no idea. Because eventually he's going to need to wake up and realize that, okay, these instructors ain't the best instructors to be around with. So there might even be a slight setup for redemption of his character in the next season. Then there's Tori, of what she learned in regards to things being rigged in the tournament by Silver, and of course seeing the referee getting his bribe. But I'm also wondering if Terry Silver might have also played a part in bringing in the singer Carrie Underwood. So, and I know I'm not the only one who's sort of brought that up, but it is something that is sort of like being tested in the waters. I also feel that next season as well, that there might be a time for open. You'll definitely see Kenny and Anthony continue in martial arts. Of course, even though Anthony will probably be the noob, I can definitely see him more so under Chosen's instruction than Daniel's instruction, because he's wanting to, because you do see something in relation to the series. Yeah, that is totally understood. The Carrie Underwood scene was cringe. And the fact that they sort of like brought it in, I understand what they're trying to do with the series. Yeah, but you have to admit that he's manipulating all the people around him, including Kreese. Yeah, already brought that up, Michael Brent, that yes, Silver has also manipulated Kreese, and I'm already sort of like talking afterthoughts in regards to this particular season. And with this season, it also makes you think, okay, what are things that could have given more weight, like to the deal that Terry Silver and Kreese had between the dojos. Now, the very fact that they don't have a legal signed document, as this is sort of like sharing, and of course, we move into the issues of the legality. So, if there's anything done behind the scenes which connects to any illegal operations or any illegal actions, all right, this contract or this deal between Cobra Kai, Eagle Fang, and also Miyagi-Do falls to the side. In other words, it becomes null and void. And this is why I'm actually going through this website addressing the issue of the deal or the contract that was made in the series. Of course, there's the considerations. Can it include money or items or completing a certain action for someone? Well, in essence, there would be a completion of an action, which would be, in essence, the teaching of the students that they learn karate in this time or learn martial arts in this time. This is the key thing, void contract and avoidable contract. Now, this lays down the lines to which a contract can, or a contract, or in essence, a deal can become void. And here's some of the bullet points. The subject matter of the contract contains illegal activity. Bang. Sort of like once that illegal activity is found out, the contract that was made originally between Miyagi-Do and Eagle Fang becomes null and void. And I think they will probably address that in the series. Whether it's season 5 or season 6, I don't know yet. The terms were impossible or too vague to understand. In other words, were there any time to which the terms changed? In other words, and they were very broad as to what could be done and what couldn't be done. Something where there was a lack of consideration, whether it's in regards to the people who are involved in the contract, or if there is actually something missing in the contract, or there was a false representation of facts. Now, we do know one of the things that do actually occur in the season is that there was, in fact, a false representation of facts. Because one thing that they didn't know about was the illegal or behind the scenes activity to which Kreese was doing in order to win in the valley. And you could see that when he was already scouting out for new locations in the valley. And of course, he was doing this behind Kreese's back. And this is why it's quite important to bring the idea of the contract or how a deal can become void or become null and void. Of course, moving into the type of voidable contract, a party forced the other into signing the contract. So, seeing that no parties were forced into signing a contract, but basically agreeing to a contract that might fall into the area of it. A party was under undue influence, so they might not have been under the right influence at the time. I think with Johnny's case, if he were to agree with it, he could have said that he was drunk at the time. And that would also like play a part in the contract becoming null and void. Or one of the parties breaches the terms of the contract. And of course, we've got a few examples here. And this also lets us know how the contracts or deals can be terminated. And that's why I wanted to share this part. And of course, it leaves on great advice. Always double check everything so you don't miss anything in relation to what is being made in the deal. Well, I'll stop that there. A big thanks to all those who made it to the live stream. Until then, let's keep it colorful and have yourself an awesome day.